These straps right here are what I'm going to make actually the inflatable costumes stronger. Inflatable costumes, all inflatable costumes should actually have these on them. If they don't have them on, which majority of them don't, so these straps right here would be your next go-to when it comes to that, because hot air balloons are the same way, because they have to carry people and they have to handle tremendous stress and stuff like that. And safety really comes first with anything, really. So this is actually going to be just that. So I'll be putting that together with the sewing machine and then show you guys live in person of exactly how much time it's going to take you to set something like that up, and then do a quick demonstration of how this is going to work on the fabric once it's sewn, and then put this on top of it and stuff like that. And I'm only gonna do a little bit of it for testing, for stress testing. These are from Play Parachutes. You can get these off of Play Parachutes, and you can literally buy $30 in Play Parachutes, and then get a bunch of these handles, and then you can have a bunch of them, and you can just have more than if I have to guesstimate everything with here, with a 6 foot one, 6 foot and two 6 foot inflatable or Play Parachutes, not inflatable ones. They're inflatable by nature anyway, because when you put them in the air, they capture the air and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it's basically you would need at least 4 Play Parachutes, 4 of them, to be able to do what I'm doing with this. So this is 4 Play Parachutes worth of straps right here that you would actually see right here. And there's about 3 of them that are missing. So if I were to guesstimate it and everything right here, this is around 10 feet of material that you get of webbing for your inflatable costume. So, and you get it in sections. So you have to sew up these sections as well. And when you're doing your fabric as well too, you gotta be careful of these like little snag areas too. These things that can snag things on your fabric and stuff like that. So you can always cut that off with your the tailoring scissors that you have on hand. So I would recommend highly getting tailoring scissors like these ones right here. These are tailoring scissors specifically meant for fabric, only for fabric. Do not use these with anything else. I would not recommend for cardboard. Not meant for cardboard. So another thing that I gotta tell y'all, that's not meant for cardboard. So with all that being said, I'm actually going to show you guys get down into this. I actually got to find my cushions first, and then I got to do that, and then I'll show you guys that. So that right there is what you would get in the material, but the actual Play Parachutes that you get from that. This is actually 4 of them, as I mentioned before. To be honest, you actually have to get that in order to get this much webbing for your inflatable projects or inflatables. It doesn't matter what it is, or a hot air balloon thing. You can home make your own hot air balloon, but make sure it goes through all the other regulations first as well. But anyway, I wouldn't really recommend this for a homemade version, but you can try it though, and just don't go into hot air balloon when you're done with it, and then it'll take you a couple of years to make one anyway. So because you need 900 square feet of material, so and then you need 900 square feet of this right here too with it, over that, about just as much. So my recommendation is to stick with definitely inflatable costumes and inflatables, because that's less of a project to even get into with that. So without further ado, I'm going to definitely try to get started on this other thing here. This is a Singer Centomatic sewing machine, very old sewing machine. One of the best ones out there that still is compared to the ones today at home sewing machines. So the ones that are at home then nowadays don't work like this one. So I can tell you guys that much. So this right here particularly, that's what I'm going to I've mentioned before. And instead of getting cushions over here, I'm just gonna sit down, or actually, I actually want to be comfortable, y'all. So I'll be right back in camera in a little bit after I get some cushions. There we go. Now I'm back with the cushions to sit down on. At least I can sit down on something, and I gotta sit on something when I'm down here working on this kind of stuff. even though they're meant for the outside stuff, outside patio stuff, but it'll work for right now. So it gives me somewhere to sit to work on something like this, to show you guys an example of just how good of an engineering type of skill set I have for hot air balloons or anything else that's pretty much an aircraft or not an aircraft thing. So pretty much that's anything that holds any type of air kind of thing, including spacesuits. It doesn't really matter with that kind of thing. That includes that's nothing short of a miracle when it comes to other things that I can do with that kind of stuff. I'm pretty much nothing short of a miracle with that. So with all that being said, with all the skill sets being said, I'll just have to adjust the machine and put the thread in here of what I want to put in here. This one right here, since it's almost out, I will have to save that one for later. For demonstrations, I'm just going to do this one right here particularly. This is number 69 thread, bonded nylon. I highly recommend doing that with your inflatable costumes or inflatable projects, because these other threads that are out there just break, so this one doesn't. So I'd highly recommend that. And if you're new to the channel, don't hesitate to subscribe, because there's more content like this one. But this would be my first video of actually doing that in person like this, and it turns into a video actually afterward. After I'm done live streaming this, it turns into a video afterward, and then y'all can visit my YouTube channel, watch it at any time, and rewind any parts that you would actually want to know of the other things that I'd be doing over here with that. So you don't want to actually have, particularly you want it to be like nice and straight, like that kind of thing. So then you want to cut off any thread that doesn't make it so straight for your project. So you can actually put it through your needle and put it through the eye of the needle. Actually, what you want to do first of all is have some tweezers right here, and put that through with some tweezers like that, and then put it through your needle. And just ever so slightly with that. Sometimes it takes a while. It does take a while in time. In real time, this does take a while. So, not really a while, but sometimes it takes up to a half hour to really do what you gotta do. Sometimes this is the most tedious part. It's trying to make sure your thread is not, and this is not cooperating right now, so I have to cut it again to make it cooperate much more easily. All right, that shall do. Actually having a thread, there it is. You gotta have one of these with it. And that is always a helper, a good helper with a sewing machine. That'll help. And don't use tweezers. I'd highly recommend not using tweezers. Just one of these. It's just a guide to thread through or pull it through with that. And the needle's make sure your needle's at the highest position for it. This is always a tedious part right here, so you gotta be patient with it. Then this exactly shows you how you're supposed to thread the machine. Top right here, that little part right here. You just go down over here, go like that with it. Make sure to take up levers right here, right at the very top. And then you just go right through the take up lever. Bring that part right over there. And see how it's like that. And then you just go like that with it. And bring it through that guide. And this guide over here. And this guide. And last but not least, that little guide. And then through your needle. Through your actual needle after that. This is always the pain in the butt kind of guide. So because you always got to put it in the back of the machine, so that's usually pretty fun doing that. Not really. Sometimes it's time consuming. But yes, to me it's not really. Not to somebody who doesn't really like that too much. That's why I like sewing machines that actually have things that are automatic things on there and all that, and all these other special little things on there. You don't gotta have it. I just prefer it. When it comes to sewing machines and that. Oh, okay. It is easy to miss it. So you can always put your thread in there until you feel it in there. And then you just take your thread looper thing and then you loop it through. And you take it through, and then now it's through the needle. Just want to make sure nothing's in your way. Anything that is in your way, just take it out of your way. Now you just gotta redo that again because of the other thing that was in the way. The seam thing, or the thing that actually is for the thread itself, the guide. You can always take it off the machine when you're doing this, but I prefer to leave it on for other reasons because I got to use it still. It's a tool that I prefer to use anyway. Once again, I prefer to use that tool. Since it is a smaller needle, this is the reason why it's taking so long. So I'm going to redo it again. There we go. Should be able to go right through. Oh, nope. Sometimes even this has a hard time. There we go. Now that's not having a hard time with it. Just that part, and just that thing I threaded through there. Let's try this again. Alright, now I got it through there again. And then you just do that other. You gotta do this one other part for it to work properly, otherwise it doesn't. It's just it's a very old machines, and these older machines, you gotta do what you gotta do with these other things like that. Try not to get tangled with anything else. Put it behind the machine so it doesn't get entangled with anything over here. So that's very important to remember. Put your thread behind it. So when you're sewing something, and when you need to sew something, which I'll test this on scrap fabric, which is this right here is going to be the scrap fabric I'm going to test it on. Very closely related to the aviation grade material of these hot air balloons and stuff like that. It's pretty much the same identical stuff, but it's basically just a lot cheaper of a version of it. Not meant for it, not meant for like flight or anything like that. So keep that in mind when you're using cheaper materials and stuff like that. So when you're doing prototyping and stuff like that, this is actually fine. This is fine doing prototyping and stuff like that, making very little scales and stuff like that of your hot air balloon. And then you can go on to your big project once you actually know that your small one actually works. So, and then you can really then do it all later. And then even if it's just a one-time use one, you can still do that over and over again. And then see that fraying over there? You want to cut that right off with it. And make sure it's nice and straight with that. This is so when you go to sew it, it's not going to fray on you again. Then first of all, you want to sew your webbing of what you want to sew with it, and then put that together. Since it's all in pieces, since these were meant to be just handles in the first place, I have to sew them together and make the webbing for the costume I plan to make them with. So that right there, particularly, I'm going to do that with this sewing machine right here. And with the Singer 401A there, and the Singer 403A is actually right down here, so that's off camera. The Singer 401A is the one that I'm using right now, and the current in the picture frame here, or in the video here. And this is forwards, and backwards is when this lever is up here, that's backwards, down here is forwards. Very simple. And AK means that it's going doing that straight stitch. And its maximum sewing speed is actually 1200 RPM, so you want to make sure to keep that in mind for this machine. So it's not going to be like super duper fast, but that's pretty fast for an at-home sewing machine. So for its time, it was very fast, and for the time now, it's still a very fast at-home sewing machine. Still one of the best ones out there that you can get at home for your at-home use. But the only drawback is it's not really meant for these industrial grade stuff, so it won't run for as long as an industrial sewing machine would. Commercial sewing machines are meant to run for longer, and they're a lot faster. And of course, it definitely did a little bit of puckering with that, with the thread a little bit, but just to show you guys an example with that, it did. At first, it didn't really do a great job with that, and that's to be expected with this older machine here. It's not as consistent as the ones in the nowadays, so it's going to be like that at first, and at first glance there. But then the rest of the time, it actually ended up catching it and doing the job. In which, yeah, that's not what you want to happen there either. So this right here particularly, as you can tell, this obviously failed over here with that one, but maybe on the inflatable costume itself, it would not fail on there as much. So I can always sew it over itself then, in that case, and then do it that way. Let's try this way then. Try 4 layers of this particular material. Maybe I'd have to do 4 layers. Who knows? It's all about trial and error of what you do with your thing here, and then do not do this on your project of what you're wanting to do that for. If you do this on your project kind of thing, the entire project could fail with that if you try to do this on your project. So you don't want to do that. You always want to do test runs before you even do anything like that, especially if you're doing hot air balloons or anything like that. So definitely very much a big old heads up with that. And hot air balloons require a lot of work. So, and so does this. This requires a whole lot more work. So I will definitely try to actually do a demonstration of this to see if this actually holds. Now I'll test it this way to see if this holds. That should hold. This should hold a lot better than what it did because I just went over it quite a few times. So that should be able to hold now. Then we have your threads. You put your excess, your scrap threads in here, the area where you don't really want it to be a part of your thing. Now, look at that. Much better. So much better. Always do that at first. Now it's super enforced to the point to where it's not going anywhere. That thread, not going to be going anywhere. You want them not to be able to tear it apart like I did at first. This is all the difference right here for your fabrics and stuff like that, especially for your webbing and your inflatable costume fabrics. So that would be all the difference with that. Always do it really good at first. At least three times ish. 1 to 3 times. That was about twice right there with that, but you can do it a second time like that, like what I did, and stuff like that, and just to kind of make sure you have thick enough material like what I just did to do your webbing with that. So now I'm going to demonstrate it on the fabric of what you would use for it. Basically an example piece of what I would do with actual hot air balloon fabric. So, and this machine is not really meant for, definitely, it's not meant for like aviation, it's not an aviation grade machine for whatsoever. This machine's not meant for that. It's only meant for at home and not industrial uses and stuff like that. So to make that crystal clear with that. But I'd be making, I still use hot air balloon material on this machine. It's just, it would be a lot slower for it to do its job. So I'll just put it that way. Once you really get to know your machine when it comes to sewing, then you start to recognize patterns with it and stuff like that, and you start to know, oh, okay, then this machine needs this, and this machine needs that right now, kind of thing. especially it's good to know when you have to oil it and stuff like that. Very, very important to oil this thing and keep it nice and oiled. And also, it's very important to keep it nice and greased once in a while. Don't just take it into somebody who does that for you. Do it yourself. It's a lot cheaper to do it yourself. Never try to get somebody else to try to do it for you, because try to learn it yourself. Do it yourself. I always highly recommend doing that if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, I'd recommend bringing it to a professional who knows what they're doing, like me, kind of thing. I know exactly what I'm doing with these kind of things because I was taught by a professional. So definitely you want to be sure on that part. So I'm definitely going to do another test run with that. I'm going to actually cut this material right here in half like that. So then you guys can see it's cut in half. And then I'm going to put it together. No pins, no nothing like that. This is exactly how it'd work on hot air balloon materials. It's not exactly straight, but it doesn't have to be. Not for demonstration purposes. Alright, that part is done. And I would highly recommend not just doing one stitch or not just one like this. At first, you want to do that for your fabric, but then on your webbing, to put on this fabric particularly, you want to do it at least twice over there. And you gotta go on this side and on the left side too, right in the left side. So you want to make sure it's nice and secure with that. And yes, this would take me 2 years to make a hot air balloon like this. By the way, I can see why it would take me 2 years to make a hot air balloon, because it's 900 square feet of material to over 1,300 square feet of material. So that would definitely make it very difficult for me to make that. So yes. But it's not really not doable for me. I can definitely do it. It's just me taking 2 years to make one. And it may take me only like 21 days to make a hot air balloon. Who knows? It takes me 21 days to make complex structures, but other than that, I can do stuff pretty quickly. As you've seen right here, kind of thing. And just then you want to make sure you're lining up good. Then you go like this with it. Then you kind of take your tail, move your tail out of the way of the sewing. Then you pivot it just like what I just did. Then you pivot it around to where you leave your needle in there, and then you pivot it to where you want it to be, and then you point it towards you again. Then I go forward again. And then you just take it right back up. Now it's time to test your webbing on your material to see what it does. And no tearing at all whatsoever. So definitely highly recommend doing this for your inflatable costume or inflatable. Or if you're making a hot air balloon at home, this is one way to do it. So you gotta also have the right sewing machine for it. Aviation standards and stuff like that. It has to meet their standards. Especially the sewing machine too. So it has to be nice and safe. This is safe and reliable too, but it's just very slow when it comes to the standards of that. And it won't meet the standards because it will not be able to handle that type of fabric for extended periods. So not something ideal for a professional company, like what I'm trying to run. Not exactly an ideal thing, but it works for right now, and it does the job. And it does the job for testing and prototyping and stuff like that. So pretty much, instead of doing that with it, I'd recommend doing it on the inside of it like that. For so it's inside of the costume and not outside of it. So the seams, you don't see the seams on the outside of the costume like that. So then you don't see anything. This is so you can just see the perfect structure of it and the reinforcement. This is just for demonstration purposes. This is an example of what you can do for your inflatable costumes, and an example of what I also can do as well. And of course, if there's any additional questions that you all may have for that, then I'll be more than happy to. Oh, what I'm doing is I'm showing you guys an example piece of what I'd be doing for like hot air balloons or for inflatables or inflatable costumes. Basically, reinforcing it, making it better. That's what I'm doing with that, and showing the examples of what I can do with that, and of my skills of what I can do. Basically, that's what I'm doing with this. Showing that to the community for the hot air balloon enthusiasts, to people that are really into these kinds of things. So to show them that I can actually do these kinds of things as well, and show anyone else who was curious to know that this is exactly what I've picked up on that recently. I've learned that recently, to reinforce material this way, and how to seal it properly and stuff like that with hot air balloons and that. So basically, I'd treat this the same way as a hot air balloon material. And then of course try to make an aviation grade standard and all that. And that will be something that I would come up with later, and that'll be way later. So yeah, and so now the stress is just going to be on this part of it and the actual webbing, and not the material itself. So this is definitely a win for the inflatable costume community, or in the inflatable community. But I'll see you guys in my